Today is August 7th. It's 1:10 p.m. and we're here with Mr. Eric Lohmann. I'm Kylie Coleman and I'm here with my friend Hannah to go over his experience in the military. So what, could you tell us your birthday?
July 5th, 1969.
And what, like, conflicts, branch of service?
I was in the Air Force for 21 years, from 1992 to 2013. Conflicts. I'm going to start with Operation Provide Promise, which is the humanitarian airlift for Bosnia during the breakup of Yugoslavia. That started in 1993. I started participating in that in 93. The war started in 92. Joint Task Force Southwest Asia with Southern Iraq. 96. That was in 96. Then the war for Kosovo, that was 1999. Operation Enduring Freedom in 2001, the global war on terrorism, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. I deployed twice for that, so that's 2007 and 2010.
What was your rank and grade?
I retired as a lieutenant colonel, and so I came in as a second lieutenant and progressed through, and then retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Okay. And then time served?
The time, so 1992 to 2013, so 21 years over that time.
Wow.
What made you want to join?
Great question, okay, and it's one that's really strong for me. My parents came over to America as immigrants from Germany, independently in the early 60s. My dad came first and my mother a couple years after him, and each wound up joining the Air Force, and in their first assignment met each other and had careers in the Air Force. My dad did 20 years in the Air Force and enlisted, and my mom, shortly after having my older sister, she got out but then joined the Air Force Reserves, and as an Air Force Reservist she got a commission to become an officer, which wasn't as common back in the early 70s, especially for an immigrant. So they had gotten their degrees while serving. And so she retired as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves. And so each of my parents served 20 years plus in the Air Force, and then also for the Department of the Air Force, or my dad, Department of Defense, did another 20 years. So roughly 80 years between the two of them in service. So for me, joining the military, there's along the way as what we call a military brat, a military kid that gets carted around from base to base, assignment to assignment. There was so many moments of inspiration and drive. So for me, it was a natural decision that I wanted to serve. I probably decided in like the 8th grade that that's what I was going to do.
Why did you pick this service branch?
It's what my parents did,
Yeah.
and so and for me at the time, yeah, there was no other branch. But I say that, but during the course of my career and started working with others. And while my personality and how I kind of grew up was very Air Force, I think my respect and looking at the other services, that those would have been phenomenal too. So you really can't go wrong.
What was your experience in basic training and your first days of service? Any major events or people that you met that influenced your career?
Okay, a couple of things in there. Okay, so basic training. I did what's called ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, in college. And so that is during the course of all 4 years of college. We attend military classes. It's a class during each semester, and then what's called Leadership Lab, where we learn to march and everything. And the first 2 years is quite competitive to get a slot to go to, called camp. It's basically our basic training. For me, it was 4 weeks in the summer, and so that was high stress environment, high competitive environment, competitive to get there, get selected to go, and then go. It was a lot of stress, but a lot of fun. Coming back from it, we all came back with such phenomenal stories of just joking of just funny experiences that we'll never forget. From buffing a floor to being in the wrong uniform and getting in trouble for that, getting in trouble for having a haircut that we tried to do with our electric razors and stuff instead of a barber because we didn't have time, and so getting in trouble for that. So there was a lot of shared experiences there and bonding with the other cadets. And then we did 2 more years of ROTC classes in college, and so and then got commissioned as lieutenants in the Air Force, in my case. And so from there, I'm not going to, well, yeah, see what the other questions are, but after graduating, I went to Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas, for what we call technical training schools, where we learn our job. And my job was as an intelligence officer. And it was another 9 months of school. Intense coursework, but a lot of fun, and getting to know and bond with our classmates, and we all have the same ambition of pursuing a life of service, or at least a period of service for the country. And so it was great times.
So you talked a little bit about different conflicts. So where did you deploy for each of those conflicts, and like what were differences between them?
Oh, absolutely. I like to say it all went downhill. I started great and it went downhill. So my first conflict, okay, so 1993 to 95, I was in Germany working with C-130 cargo aircraft, providing humanitarian airlift to Bosnian refugees and things like that in the newly forming Republic of Bosnia. I have to put an aside here. Watching the Olympics is awesome because I'm seeing countries like Bosnia and Croatia and Slovenia and Montenegro, and you know, seeing those countries, like I had something to do with the formation of those countries. It's pretty awesome, and so it's a neat thing. So one of my locations for deploying humanitarian, the mission, we were flying missions out of Frankfurt, Germany, into Sarajevo, which was home of the 1984 Winter Olympics, if you didn't know that. So everybody knew about Sarajevo because it was on TV not too long prior, and it was a terrible, terrible war. So I deployed to a town called Ancona, Italy, on the Adriatic coast, and we flew, there were Americans that flew, Canadians, British, French, and Germans, and so working together with not only their intel officers, but their air crew and everything, working together, socializing together, being on an Italian beach resort in the spring. It was a pretty awesome deployment. We knew it wouldn't get any better than this in our careers. That was my first deployment. So the second deployment I had was in 1996 in support of enforcing the no-fly zone in southern Iraq, and that was Joint Task Force Southwest Asia in Riyadh, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And so that was, learned a lot, very busy. They had housing for us in this village called Escon Village. I think it means village. But they made these condos that were, concrete condos, relatively modern. Before Desert Storm, a couple years before Desert Storm, they made them for the Saudi government made them for the Bedouin tribes in Saudi Arabia to kind of modernize them and bring them into indoors because they like to be outdoors. So the story goes that they lived in them for a couple of months, then they moved out and put their animals in, and then they said, all right, to heck with this, and took their animals, and they said, we must see the stars, and so they just kind of left, and they were largely abandoned. And then come around Desert Storm, they became some housing for Americans. Desert Shield and Desert Storm happened my senior year of college. It's one point I want to make. You're going to go to college soon, okay? And you never know what event, when you wake up and start watching the news, if anybody watches the news anymore, start watching the news, it's like, wow, my life just changed a lot. My plan was to be an intel officer in Germany and drive a BMW on the Autobahn and fight the Cold War. I majored in Cold War, okay? All that stuff, things like that. And my first assignment, I was an intelligence officer in Germany driving a BMW on the Autobahn. It was a beater. It barely ran, but I accomplished that task. So it was kind of weird accomplishing all those life goals in your first assignment. But very quickly, the next assignment, going to Saudi Arabia. And so what we were doing is enforcing the no-fly zone over southern Iraq, and I was working in targeting, and they would look at targets, key targets, and we're tasking aircraft to go make sure that they could strike those targets if tasked upon. A significant event happened there. I was staying in Riyadh. It was about a 4-hour drive to Dhahran, where we had a lot of our fighters based, and we did a visit, and then, after about 6 hours there, well, do we stay the night like we plan on, or do we leave? So we stayed the night. The next week, I was supposed to be rotating out of, in fact, I did rotate out of Riyadh. I was rotating out on Thursday. Tuesday, the attack called Khobar Towers. I don't know if you've ever heard, probably not. A lot of people haven't heard of Khobar Towers, but the dorms basically next to where we lived, where we're staying, there was a big truck bomb and blew up. 19 people died. It's amazing that only 19 people died. People talk about what went wrong at Khobar Towers. My thing was what went right, because the bomber was actually rejected at the gate. He kind of went around the outside, blew up there. But if he had gone inside, he probably would have killed 2,000 or 3,000 people. Seriously. And so again, that happened on Tuesday, and on Thursday I just happened to be rotating out. We had to pass through there. There was not a glass window left in the entire base or place. It was a lot of damage and a lot of psychological damage. And we actually had some patients that could walk and stuff like that had a lot of cuts and bruises and everything on my flight back to the States. So that was Riyadh. Just doing my math here. Then I deployed I was assigned when I left, or when I was at Saudi Arabia. That was out of my base in Tucson, Arizona. After Tucson, Davis Monthan Air Force Base, I went to Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii. And Hickam were concerned about the Pacific and everything there. Great place, paradise is Hawaii. The war in Kosovo kicks off 1999. And so they said, hey, we're looking for some people. I'm there. Because Kosovo, that's my war. I'm an expert on that area. I lived, ate, and breathed it. Nobody could touch me on that. And so went there. So I deployed to Vicenza, Italy. And in Vicenza, I'd been to Italy before. I love Italy. That was great. What we're doing there is kind of the air war over Kosovo. There was bombing missions, and also just things going on. It was a 2-month deployment, but Vicenza, Italy was not terrible to be at, but it was a very busy time. It was only a short deployment of about 2.5 months. Came back from that, then eventually moved to Travis Air Force Base, California, to a unit that was called an Air Mobility Operations Group. It took my experiences from working with airlift aircraft, everything to go around the world. But when I had my turnover with my predecessors, this is a new kind of unit. It's never been exercised, or we do a lot of training exercises, but we've never really deployed anywhere in war or anything like that. That hasn't happened. So it's going to be a sleepy hollow. It's going to be a very quiet assignment. So one particular Tuesday, I'd been there maybe 3.5 weeks. I'm playing on the internet in the morning. It's like almost 7 o'clock. It's like, okay, I'll go to the gym on the way to work. I'll get off my dial-up internet. As soon as I got off the internet, one thing on the main screen come up. Plane collides with World Trade Center. I'm like, oh, some Cessna probably hit the top of the World Trade Center. I'll be hearing about that all day. And so, click that off, phone rings. It's like, Eric, yeah? They hit the Trade Center. I'm like, yeah, I saw it. No, a plane hit the Trade Center. I'm like, oh, and he's like, oh, and they hit the Pentagon. My dad's in the Pentagon. And so, okay, now things have changed just a little bit. Okay, so, trying to get into work, throw my uniform and set up my workout here, and I'm just trying to drive in the base, and the base is closed, there's a lineup. And what was really, I think, impressive to see is we had young airmen that were cops, security force personnel, and they were literally, it was only a 10-minute drive to base for me, ditching their cars, like putting them in ditches, jumping out of their cars and running to base. They just got to get into work and stuff, but it was kind of on lockdown and everything like that. So we found out, okay, what's going on? So September 11th, a couple of stops and starts, trying to figure out what's going on. And in early October, we were deploying forces to different bases in that region of the world, including a base called Karshi-Khanabad, Uzbekistan. I didn't go there, but here's what we did to a young lieutenant. Okay, poor guy. Okay. He was going to move from our unit to the unit that was deploying some personnel, and at the end of October, so soon. And so somebody got hurt while in what's called a mobility line, packing up the aircraft. Somebody pulled their back out. And they said, "Can Lieutenant Taylor go?" Well, in theory, our unit has a 12-hour response time where we had our equipment and bags in a warehouse, boom, ready to go. So this poor guy, 23 years old, actually not poor, he loved it, showed up to work on a Tuesday knowing he had to give 2 or 3 briefings for people deploying, Well, briefing number 3 was his plane that he deployed on. And literally it's like, get this stuff together. Hey, in my desk drawer is my checkbook. Can somebody get it to my roommate so he can write checks for rent? Because, I mean, it was literally that kind of thing. And can somebody buy me a pair of jeans in case I need a pair of jeans? Can somebody go to the store? It's like, okay, I mean, it was literally that kind of thing. And so he deployed there for 2 months. If you've seen the movie, recommend the movie, it's kind of a shoot 'em up as 12 Strong, where they talk about the horse soldiers. It's the first special ops soldiers that joined with Afghanis and were riding on horseback and fighting the base that they deployed to, Karshi. We had set that up. We were among the first 100 people on base, we being our guys, okay, had established that base and stuff, and they had pretty rough conditions. I was fortunate, so that was in 2001, October of 2001. In January of 2001, I deployed to Doha, Qatar, to set up an operation location there, and from there we would fly in equipment and then deploy it to various bases that we were setting up throughout Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, other places in the Middle East, and kind of set that all up. Doha, Qatar was pretty cool, but basically we were stuck at the airport. It's like being at an airport smaller than Dulles, but never leaving. I think my world was basically a mile square. Better than a ship, but still just a mile square. Okay, that was my world. Came back after 2 months, and then 2 months after that, deployed back to a headquarters in Saudi Arabia for Operation Enduring Freedom, and there, a great mission where we were in charge of go, no-go recommendations for all the airfields in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, the war on terrorism. Can our troops go there or not? Can our plane take off and land there? We plan on it. Is it safe enough? Everything, and I would make that recommendation or that call. And so that was Saudi Arabia for 4 months. We were housed in one location and bused to another location. Again, the world was pretty. It's not like traveling around Europe like I imagined it would be during my career. So it's a big change. But it was a great mission and with a lot of impact. And I remember one airfield there was a debate. There was debate over should we open this one airfield to flights. And we had 600 Army people in this airfield called Kaust in the Hornet's Nest in eastern Afghanistan. And this was hilarious. So I worked about this close to my Army ground liaison officer, and these guys had nothing. These guys had a very light pack, not even the whole thing, nothing to worry about, 600. And the prevailing wisdom was, well, there could be a threat there, we're really not sure, we don't think the airfield should be open. And I said to my guy, my colleague, I said, what do the Army's guys do if there's no shelter, no blankets? How do they keep warm at night? He's like, Eric, they spoon. Okay, it's like, what? Yes, they spoon. They cuddle, they dig a hole, and they cuddle in it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we have to stop that right away. And so I said, yeah, security, we've got 600 Army guys that are pretty motivated for us to land. I think they might be able to secure the airfield pretty well. And we did a bunch of other threat assessment things and looked at it and got that airfield open and got them some supplies and food and some other things pretty well. But the main thing is getting them some shelter because it was a long time. So that was the one in Saudi. And then had a little bit of a break of deployments, which was cool. Went from Travis Air Force Base to the Pentagon. And the Pentagon, we still send forces, or people, individuals, to different assignments. So in Baghdad in 2007, I deployed to support the Army in Baghdad. So there was one palace that used to be beside the TV, and I worked in that palace. And so that was a pretty active place. We had good mission, everything like that. I got a 6-month deployment, so that was my longest deployment. But we had mortar attacks and stuff kind of randomly. And so I'll tell a couple of stories of the mortar attacks. First of all, gonna back up. during much of the career, the services like to tease each other. In American Legion, we like to tease each other about our services. But what I saw from like these 19 and 20-year-old Army privates that would be coming from the chow, would all eat together at the chow hall, and they would call leave the wire. They get in an up-armored Humvee, have barbed wire on it and everything. They come from the chow hall and they have like box lunches for their day. And they looked like, if you remember the Peanuts cartoons, Pigpen, the cloud of dust. I mean, these guys, because they just were out yesterday and they're out again today. And the thing is that really built up my admiration for these young guys and women too. Is you face your fear. Imagine facing the biggest fear you have, and like, whew, okay, survive that. Never have to do that again. No, you're doing that again in 12 hours. Okay, whew, okay, my best friend just got killed. You got to do that again in 12 hours. Okay, or maybe 8 hours or whatever, and then over and over and over again. So the amount of stress these guys were under was just amazing in their professionalism and their ability to keep going back and back and back. With me, I'll share this funny story. Yeah, that's a funny story. Okay, so we have 4 tables here. What we had for showers was called they call them a Cadillac. I don't know why they're called Cadillacs, but it's basically a trailer with 3 sinks, and then for many urinals, okay, and then we had showers, quarter interval showers, kind of like a locker room. And then there was another trailer kind of behind it, about 10 feet away, that had toilets and sinks. And then, and that was more unisex. And then next to that, you had 2 things of trailers where people lived in. So morning routine, getting there. And gosh, this trailer's a little bit more crowded. We get an incoming siren, like no mortar attacks coming. And it was like, bah, 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 boom. Mortar comes like right near us, and then boom again. And what we found out after the fact, so about 7 mortar attacks, boom. And then I remember I was brushing my teeth, hide under the sink basically, just trying to get any kind of cover. And so and I remember one guy said something to me and I couldn't respond. I couldn't talk back. It was like, nothing's coming out. It's not that I had foam in my mouth from toothpaste, it's just I couldn't talk. It was the strangest thing. And then, because our thing was shook, and then after it all settled down, I was like, I'm gonna go out and see what happened. The trailer behind us with all the bathrooms and stuff was blown up. It was like 10, 15 feet away. According to my schedule, I would have been in that trailer 15 minutes from that.
Wow.
Okay, I would just how things worked. Okay, and so so that was a stressful day, but it's still nothing compared to people that had bullets whizzing by their heads every day and other attacks and stuff like that. So, but it's one of my experiences. I have to share another one from Iraq. Good part about Iraq. First of all, the military, it's a very small world. So my best friend from college would have been my best man at my wedding, but he was already assigned elsewhere. Still my best friend to this day. 3 months into my deployment, he came and he worked on the same base. And so it was like we were in college again. We'd go to work all day and we get together and hang out in each other's offices and stuff like that. It was really pretty cool. So one night I was taking a shortcut to his office. It was late at night. And so walking there, and it's the path less traveled, but it's a little bit more thing. Incoming siren come on. They I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I gonna go? Okay, wait, there's a little bridge over a canal here. I'm gonna go right in this corner of this bridge. And then, so I'm tucked in and everything, so okay, this is about as good as it gets. And then a closer siren starts indicating like it's kind of, because they kind of triangulate where it's gonna go. It's like, so you're closer to me now. And I'm like, okay, I'm wearing dark blue at night under a bridge, and it's gonna come here. This is how it is. Okay, and nobody knows I'm going this way. I didn't tell anybody I'm walking this way. Why would they look here for me? After mortar attack, we do a kind of an attendance roll to see if everybody's accounted for, but still, like, this is it. Well, evidently no mortars came, so everything's cool. But, so like, okay, come out, go walk, go walk to there. I'm covered, like I got a scab here, scab on my nose, I just hit the gravel and, whole thing. And so, so that was kind of a funny time, because it was like funny after the fact, where you're like, I was really thinking this is how I had. Okay, cool. So we became a little bit more disciplined about telling Jay, hey, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna be there. This is where I'm gonna be. That was a good 6-month deployment. Came home, and then transferred to another organization here in the DC area, and deployed again to Iraq. And that was a little bit quieter deployment, but the same location. And so that was from 2009 to 10. And so again, great people all over the place, everything. And that happened to be my last deployment. So when I came back, went to Korea for a year. That was a deployment, that was an assignment, but I was away from the family. That sucked. But Korea was awesome. And then came back and then retired actually from the Air Force. Long answer, sorry.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions in the service?
First impressions. Having grown up around the service and been at a couple of different bases, big bases and smaller bases and stuff, and been really part of the military community, and then kind of outside of the military community. What I felt, first of all, the level of community, the level of family, because people are so much away from their families. So community organizations, support groups, but just teamwork. With me supporting the aircrew flying over Bosnia, for instance, and they were getting shot at and things like that. These became my friends, my brothers and sisters. You know, they were my team. And so looking them in the eye and saying, hey, this is what can happen to you. And them accepting the risk and then having to make that decision, or how they're going to overcome the risks that I've laid out. But really the sense of community was one of my biggest impressions. Community, teamwork, diversity. I grew up in that environment, and I found it very, very, for me, very familiar. And it was good to be kind of home again. Also, it's kind of weird, I have to share this. Rhein-Main Air Base in Frankfurt, Germany, as a second lieutenant, is also where I lived for 3rd grade. And so, and lots of people around here can do that, like, oh yeah, I grew up here and I live here now. But no, in the military, that is, you know, I've lived 4 other places since then, or whatever, maybe 5. And so it was neat to say, where I played Little League, I coached a youth soccer team. And so that was way cool. So for me, it was kind of coming home again.
Oh, that's awesome. So you said that you were an intelligence officer. Yes. What exactly did you do in that role?
A lot of different things, but really, and the most rewarding one was that first assignment, where we would look at the information available, get reports from a lot of different areas, a lot of different people, air crews that are flying, and find out threats to our crew safety. Okay, and so said, okay, there's a missile that can hit you here from here. They can do this. There's guns here, here, and here that are shooting at aircraft. On the ground, there are snipers that snipe at ground people that are unloading the aircraft, and learning all that stuff. And so on a daily basis, I'd find out the latest information, the latest threat information, and give that to our crews. And then when they flew home, also I would, what we call a debriefing. So you pre-brief, or you brief the crews, like, here's what's going to happen to you, or here's what you're going to face, and then they plan their routing around it to try to avoid the threat. And then when they come home, they report things that they saw. And I got to fly on a few missions, and it was really pretty cool to, first of all, cool to see how they go through, walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing. But they'd see tracer fire from a ground battle or something going on. And it's like, okay, we're over here, and at this time, and over here, about 5 miles off, and this is all in the dark, and stuff. So like, okay, we saw fighting here, we saw tracer fire and stuff, and sometimes tracers come up towards the sound of aircraft and everything. So okay, that place right there, avoid that place because they're gonna be firing and stuff. And then we would report it up. So that was what I did, the first one. I'm not gonna give you every single job I did, but the jobs, like say in Saudi Arabia, that first deployment was targeting. So there's certain specific targets that we looked to eliminate potentially for whatever reason we would need to whatever our purposes would be. we were enforcing a no-fly zone, so basically just flying over this thing to make sure the Iraqis weren't flying. But we were looking at, okay, if we need to take out that bridge, are we able to do that? So we'd say, okay, here's what you need to do to take out that bridge. So they'd fly from called target familiarization missions. So they'd say, so the crews will have flown over that target 10, 15 times, like, okay, today you're gonna actually drop your bomb. We're like, okay. And so it is nothing new. It's nothing new. So it's a lot of repetition of that. So we did that. So targeting and then obviously the intelligence threats to crews, and then later on worked with systems to make sure that people had the right tools so that they can do that job, the intel job, and then going on from there.
And then kind of a second part to that question, did you like earn any qualifications or go to like special schools for that type of training?
Oh, excellent, yeah. Okay, it's funny because this happened. So one of the best schools I went to was one of the first ones, besides intelligence school for intelligence technical training school, was one called Combat Air Crew Training School, CATS. They had the coolest patch of a cat. It was awesome. Anyways, and so there we worked with tacticians, so it was really nice for some of the intel people. It was the first time intel personnel and tacticians, people who would look at the threats at the intel brief and then develop counter tactics and things, work together in a class. And so we learned about different threats and how they can do things. I was fortunate in that my regular job had real threats, not training things, real threats that were threatening my guys every day. So it wasn't theoretical for me, it was just an extension of the actual thing I lived. And so we learned about that. But CAT school was great, and then you come back and you're kind of, you say, forehead stamped a smart guy. And so it's like, okay, this person's been through this training, they understand these threats. I did 2 targeting tours, and twice I was supposed to go to a targeting course, which is fantastic. I call it the engineering of the intelligence career field. Intel is kind of a liberal art. It's a little bit touchy-feely, a little bit, I think, because I read, and then from that we can assess, and this and that, where targeting is, to me, engineering. It's this bridge is made of this material, it will take this bomb this much to blow it up for this long. Okay, that is very kind of mathematical stuff. So twice I was supposed to go to targeting school, twice I got other opportunities or promotions or different roles where I said, oh yeah, you were gonna go to targeting school, but we're gonna have you this instead, and your slot goes to that person. So I didn't get to go to targeting school. But there's other courses for working in an air operations command center and tasking for that, long course there. So there's education along the way. In addition, at a certain point, you pretty much have to get your master's degree. So I worked on that as well on my own. So in addition to the military schools, you have the public education, if you will, that you need to do as well. So there's more in there, but that's.
What was one thing you experienced that you never expected going into the military?
Okay. Couple of things, let me think here. I didn't expect to be hiding under the sink when the place was being mortared. That was the thing. This was another good one. It's another Iraq story. It's funny now, it wasn't at the time. So we were walking to our dining hall. I call it a chow hall. Actually, now they call it DFAC, dining facility, DFAC. Get to know that one. Okay, it's an Army term. But we were walking. It's about a half a mile walk. The guy who sits next to me was an Army lawyer, and he was maybe 250 yards ahead of me. So I was walking with another buddy, and so we're walking in another incoming attack. And it's not like we had mortars every day, okay, but these were certain times. So we're walking, and we walk out of the palace, so we're walking this way, and incoming siren comes on, and we look at each other like, oh my God, we gotta turn around and run back. I had 2 bad knees at the time, and I'm sprinting. It's like, what hurts worse, getting blown up or just this? So sprinting, and we had our guards were from the Tongan National Guard. Actually, they were Tongan Marines that were supporting us. Biggest dude you ever saw. They're like, get in here now! You know, and so we're running, and the mortars kind of flew over us. Well, my friend, the lawyer, he was running toward the chow hall. Okay, it's kind of same thing. He said, he's running. He said, you get that spidey sense that now's a good time to dive. I'm gonna dive now. So he just, right into into gravel, and they just, Superman dive, okay? So he dived. And as he dived, he saw something like a Coke can right near him. And it was actually a mortar shell. And it was bigger than a Coke can, okay? But so he landed, and so there was what we call T-walls, this concrete wall here. He landed here. There's a little curb, a little parking lot, like a road curb. The mortar landed, blast hit the curb and went up. Picked him up, threw him against the wall, and back down. And then he was wearing glasses, dust covered his glasses. So he lands like, oh God, okay, dust settles. I'm blind. Holy crap, I'm blind. I'm so upset, And so then he's like, oh, okay, and there's dust everywhere, but it's like, this was covered. So anyway, he's like, oh, my back hurts. So medical people came, and he just wandered off. Well, we had a doctor's office back in the palace, and so he goes to the doctor's office, and it was more for administration than anything else. And it's like, wow, my back hurts, and I take it off. And shrapnel from the mortar was in his back. And first, they took his blood pressure, because they always do that when you go to the doctor. Oh, let me take your blood pressure. It was pegged, and the doctor's like, you need to calm down. That's when he said, you need to calm down. And the doctor, to his credit, said, let's have a glass of water. Shall we? Let's just have a glass of water. And so it's like, okay, we're bringing everything down. And so, and really, what was interesting is the shrapnel, and it was a little bit burned through his uniform and melted his skin into his back. So it was into his back. And so the doctor was able to get it out right there, just in the doctor's chair in the office, not even a clinic. And it was just like, okay. But he wound up getting a Purple Heart for that. And he's like, if you get a Purple Heart, okay, it's not a club you really want to join. Purple Heart you get for being combat wounded. It's like, and again, compared to others, it was nothing. But yeah, I'll never forget that. You need to calm down. But also he went to look, and he said, oh yeah, that Coke can must have been about 25 feet from me. Then he went and measured with his feet. He's like, that was 10 feet. So yeah, so that was kind of like, okay, that was pretty close. Didn't expect that stuff to happen. That's the whole thing. I really expected to be in a showdown with the Soviets, the Russians, and do that. Maybe fight some terrorism. Terrorism was a thing in Europe when I was growing up, and I wanted to fight terror. And so, boy, were you doing that. So, yeah. That's that one.
Did you, what kind of challenges did you face, and lessons just from the everyday?
Challenge? I think the biggest thing is they say, the Air Force or the military, I was saying, the military recruits the individual, but they retain the family. And so, and I'm fortunate in that, wife and I are still married, our family is still together. But really, it's a case of you make the decision to serve. You're doing that alone. Parents are helping, and they're encouraging, but it's up to you. Okay, and that's the whole thing. And then I'm going to back up a little bit with that. I used to say, all the encouragement in the world from family doesn't mean anything when you're the one doing push-ups at somebody else's feet. Okay, because yeah, they encouraged you. Okay, you go or something, but the drive to succeed has got to be yours and yours alone. Okay, in anything you're doing. Okay, parents can build that up. Okay, and say you can do this and everything. Give that self-belief, but it's up to you to decide that's what you're going to do, and you're not going to take no for an answer. And there will be those that will try to convince you that you don't belong, you're not worthy, or anything like that. Don't even acknowledge that crap. Okay, whatever your life goals are, seriously, you decide and you go after them, and maybe you get some setbacks. It's expected. Keep going after them. Family's going to be there. So challenges. Military life's hard on a family. My kids have had medical issues. My son was diagnosed with autism when I was deployed in Saudi Arabia. So, and then there's the whole thing of now I have to make some career choices based on giving my son the best opportunity to succeed. Not me. It's not about me anymore. It's about family. And so you have to balance those, because without a successful career, it makes it tough for the family to succeed. You have to balance that. And so we did the best we can. So he's doing very well. He's in grad school at the University of Maryland right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Why did you decide to stay in the military?
The retirement benefits are great. I had a great time. I'd say 97% of my time in the service. So there were tough days. I didn't have tough assignments. I didn't have tough months, but there were tough days. But I didn't have bad days. I'm fortunate in that regard. I didn't have a troop commit suicide. I didn't have a troop killed in an accident or something like that. My best friends have had that happen to them. Okay, where somebody that they care about. I've been to funerals for people in my squadron and things, or funerals of their children. Okay, so I'm very fortunate in that regard. I decided to stay because I wanted to secure benefits for my family and have a successful career, but I also wanted to contribute for as long as I could, and so it was the right choice for me.
Do you think the skills you learned in the service carried into the job you pursued after the military?
Absolutely. So I work for the Department of Defense now, and they tie in directly, support a lot of the same customers and same users. But really, okay, so that all, absolutely, but the ability to work with different people with different backgrounds, that translates very well. The ability to formulate a team, lead a project, lead a goal. Things may be named different things, different terms for things, or slightly different philosophies, but the goals of succeeding and building teams and working with international partners. That's the other thing, is working with allies and stuff, which is what I do now. That carries through all the time. So the amount of teamwork and everything, very much so.
How do you think your experience would have differed if you had chosen a different path?
It's funny. So I've lived, I think, a far from ordinary life, but for military, an ordinary life. Okay, and it's more adventure. So I went to college out in Arizona. That's where I met my wife, and her maid of honor and her husband were both accountant majors. All graduated with honors. They graduated, married, but I think a month after we got married. Got good jobs in accounting in Arizona, bought a house, kind of the dream scenario. After our first assignment in Germany, 3 years later, we kind of came back. We were living in Tucson, Phoenix. We talked and visited. So yeah, I just got back to Saudi Arabia, and everything like that. And before that, I was in Italy, and that was cool, and stuff like that. So what's new with you? Nothing. Next year, we're considering maybe going to Florida. Maybe that'd be cool. I might go to Chicago next summer for work. And it was just like, shoot me now. Okay, they have everything that so many of my classmates wanted. They successful careers, doing well, got the house, everything settled. And just in my first 3 years, I've lived so much more of an adventure than they did, and had so much more. And again, comfort zone. What's that? I mean, honestly, completely out of my comfort zone repeatedly, and you can't tell it the way I'm actually an introvert, and but a lot of the military kind of brought the stuff out of me, and I'm not the only one. I think that felt the same way. So I think that's the biggest difference.
I know you've said you've traveled to a bunch of different places in the service, but did you ever get times off where you were just
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the question. Yeah. Okay, so in Europe, we get, in the military, you get about 30 days of leave a year. And then you can sometimes combine that, depending on where you are, with weekends and holidays and stuff like that, so it can be pretty good. Sometimes you may have the time off. It's sometimes tough to get the time off depending how busy the mission is. So you have to balance, mission. But when we were in Germany, for instance, my grandparents lived in Germany, so we were able to go visit my grandparents in Bavaria and go skiing. And my best friend, the one that I was deployed with, when I was in Germany, he was stationed in England with his wife, and so my wife and I got to visit England when my daughter was 9 months old or something like that. So we got to see England with them, and so that was a great amount of fun. We had vacationed in Italy a year before I had gone to that coastal resort. We vacationed in Vicenza, Italy, for a week, and then a year later I was going back and forth up into that same place. Stayed in the same hotel I vacationed in a year earlier, so it was kind of, so Italy was great. In Tucson, what was great there is my wife was from Phoenix. Tucson was an hour and a half away from Phoenix, so we were up visiting her mom like every weekend practically. So we did a little bit in the Southwest. In Hawaii, it's tougher and more expensive to travel from Hawaii once you're in Hawaii, but my wife and I, we were able to take a cruise around the Hawaiian Islands, and that was awesome. And then I had a couple of trips. I had a business trip there to Japan for 2 weeks. And so, and in that time, take a weekend or whatever, did some sightseeing and things, but that was without the family. So other places too, you take it as you can. So
going off of that, what kind of like activities and stuff were you able to do in your free time?
Free time, but before I had kids, I coached youth soccer, 10 to 12-year-olds, and I had grown up playing soccer, and so it was great to give back that way, but also just great fun to if you're gonna have a good community, you've got to make it a good community. You've got to do something. It's if not you, then who? I think you have to participate. So got involved in coaching that way. There were other support groups. I will say this: as I started having kids, I became a little more focused on my family and everything, and my kids' activities. So as kids had some activities, like my daughter had dance when she was younger, involved in that, and some of the school activities. When I came to this area here, boys had gotten into scouting, Cub Scouts and stuff, so I participated in that for a few years. And so, and then when they were in high school, I was president of the Athletic Booster Club, so I was very much more involved in that regard. But again, it's all about building your community to make it a good community.
Did you have any unusual experiences that influenced your perspective going forward?
Yeah, I think working with others, not only people from other services, but then people from other countries. I think that really kind of sometimes shaped my outlook on some aspects. Opened my eyes maybe where I came in. Again, when you're 21 and graduated college, you know everything. You're immortal and you know everything. Okay, that's the first thing, and then you realize, wow, there's so much that I don't know, and so much other perspectives and stuff. Again, working with others, I think broadened my perspectives and kind of broadened my approach to maybe making decisions and stuff and working with others.
So could you explain like what your transition experience was like going out of the military?
Thank you. Yeah, that's first of all, thanks for looking into that. Okay, so my transition happened to be pretty good here. I had a friend of ours, and again another rarity. One of my friends from my first assignment in Texas. We were together in Germany at different bases, but celebrated holidays together. He lives less than a half mile from me now, and so they're almost as close as there's closest thing you can have to family without being family. And so he had retired a year or two before me and had a job in private industry in one of the companies, the Beltway Bandits. Have you ever heard that term? Beltway Bandits are all these defense contractors that are around the DC Beltway or Fairfax County Parkway or something like that. You'll see. He had one in a company that supported that sold technology to the Air Force. And so as I retired, transitioning. I was able to get a job with them and work for that, and worked for about a year and a half with that company. And then, but the thing that's different than in the military might have drawdowns, but they have layoffs in the civilian world. And so you get laid off and trying to find another job. I have all the qualifications. It's very tough to sometimes fit. Finally linked up with another job, and that's good. I'm fortunate that can't say that I had post-traumatic stress, though I was exposed to plenty of stress, but not nearly as much as others. Had a good network of family and kind of a lead into others. I know I listen to a lot of podcasts now talking about transitioning and stuff, and I think the biggest thing is for service members to find their next mission. You join the service 18 or whatever, you're like, okay, we're gonna do this, and our job is this, you're gonna do this. I don't know anything about that, but we're gonna train you. I'm like, okay, great, now I'm training, and this is what I do, and they told me what to do, and this is what I'm gonna do, and it's a great thing, and I love it, and all this stuff, and then now people say, I don't know, do what you wanna do. And so it's like, but I'm used to being told this is where I'm gonna go, and this is what my goals are, and so it's tough for somebody to discover what their next mission is. It's tough to discover. Think about high school peers, okay? So you have your mission, you want to join the service, okay? Lots of high school peers, even at good that are headed to good colleges. What are you gonna do? I have no idea. No idea. What am I gonna do? And so that's really tough. And that, I think if you have a next mission, that can make the transition very good. And so, yeah.
What influence did your military experience have on your post-service?
It had a huge influence. What we do now is provide maps and what was called imagery photos around the world. And I always carry the perspective of what can I do to make life easier for an 18-year-old in a gunfight with a rifle. How can I help that kid not have to think about something to where they can just focus on surviving? What can I do to make them smarter than that person that they're fighting against? What can I do to better equip them, to give them the right information? So always having that in mind. And so whatever mission I'm doing in my current service, I worked in a program manager for like cybersecurity, and make sure our networks are secure. And so our computer networks are secure so that we can transmit the information, so we can get it down to that end user. Now it's about procuring satellite images and things like that. Why? So we can make somebody make a smart decision before they send them to battle, but also give that person a picture of what they're going to face, and then so they can understand that. So really try to boil. It's enabled me to maybe boil down why am I doing what I'm doing, and if I'm not doing it for a good reason, why? Then why not? Then why am I doing it at all? So
that's great.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all the questions I had. Is there anything else you want to talk about or add? Okay,
whether one decides to join the service, whichever branch, Air Force is the best, whichever branch that you do, or not joining the service, okay? But I encourage young people to find a way to contribute to their community, find a way to contribute to the country, and somehow to make it better. And contributing to community can be anything from just raising the best family you can to, but play a role in committees, play a role in coaching, teaching, fostering activities. But try to lead a life of service to this great country, because the country needs it more than ever somehow. And again, not everybody has to pick up a gun to be of service to the country. I think that's what we want to say.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service.
It was my honor and privilege. Thank you.